It's about to go down.
Stop what you're doing because you're now tuned in to the hottest sports show on the planet.
You know who it is.
The Smith Xpress Sports Show, hosted by yours truly, Christopher C. Smith.
So look, we go get straight into it. You know what I'm saying, Dijak? What was it, and who inspired you to want to become a wrestler?
Well, that's a great question. There was really no direct inspiration to make me want to become a wrestler. There were certainly people that I was big fans of and that I enjoyed watching. But in terms of my inspiration to become a wrestler, that just kind of derived from my own sort of place in life and my timing of where I was. I just finished playing college basketball, and I had finished my master's degree in college, and I had started working. So this is in like 2012, and I was living in Tyngsboro, Massachusetts, and basically I was working every day in Malden, Massachusetts, and I was watching wrestling. I had become I now had time to watch wrestling again, so I was reacquainting myself, becoming a fan. I had been watching again, steadily for about a year at that point, from 2011 to 2012, whereas, in my childhood, I'd watched consistently, up until around 2003 or 4. And so because of all those combined situations, I just kind of stumbled upon the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, which is the school that I train at now in person in North Andover, Massachusetts. And in doing that, I found out that it was possible, right? That it was possible for me to start training and to start doing something that I thought that I could be pretty good at, and that I knew that I, would enjoy, because I enjoyed watching professional wrestling. So I thought that I would probably enjoy doing professional wrestling. So I gave it a shot, and it's been sort of a steady increase in my admiration for professional wrestling ever since that day. It's never dwindled. It's never waned. I continue to love it more and more with every passing year.
That's dope. Mike, you got a question?
Yes.
You want to ask?
I've watched some of your matches, and you have this high intensity and physicality.
Yes.
What drives you for your in-ring approach, preparing for your opponents who you matched up against?
Yeah, so for me, there's kind of two sides of the coin, right? And a lot of this derives from, it's very similar to acting in a lot of ways. In-ring wrestling is very similar to acting. And I take a lot of acting classes as well, so I see the parallels very often. I think there's sort of two kind of approaches that you can take to have the best sort of to have the best outcome in these specific situations. I think preparation is of the utmost importance. That's the first part of it, because the more that we're prepared for every situation, the more it allows us to be comfortable in the moment, right? So if I spend lots and lots of time sort of studying who my opponent is, studying who the crowd is going to be, studying the art of professional wrestling, why it matters where we are in the card, why it matters, what I do at certain times, what the crowd is looking for, what they respond to, what they're there to see, what they're not there to see, who the characters are, what drives the characters, what motivates the characters. All of those details wrapped up into a ball are all part of preparation. And then another part of that is, communicating with the person I'm working with in advance. What kind of moves do they do? What kind of sequences do they like? What kind of things that get reactions? Are they strong? Are they weak? There's a million different things that I can do in terms of preparing for the moment.
Wow.
But the mistake a lot of people make, or the mistake a lot of pro wrestlers make, and then a lot, the misrepresentation and the assumption of a lot of fans is that we do all this preparation to sort of, use and apply as we're doing it, right? Like I've memorized so much that now I know exactly what to do in exactly every moment, and I've prepared, and I'm gonna make this face when this happens, and I'm gonna throw this punch when this happens. I'm gonna do this move when this happens. The reality of both acting and professional wrestling is that all that preparation just leads us into the moment, and in the moment we want to be able to live freely in the moment, and discover what's going to happen with the knowledge that we now have as we've prepared, right? Because I prepared so heavily to be this character in the moment that now I can just let all of that go and not be thinking about what moves I'm going to do, and not be thinking about how the crowd's going to react or any of that stuff, and just be focused solely on living in the moment as this character that I've studied so intently. So for me, that level of preparation is what ends up ultimately making it so uh, fun in a sense, right? Because now I can just be this character, through and through, and I can live freely in the moment to do and react and act however I want, because I trust my preparation to put me in that situation to be able to perform at that level. So that's kind of the approach that I take, and that's why, you can see this sort of uh, intense level of physicality and violence,
Yeah.
and frustration, and because all of those are real emotions that I'm really experiencing in the moment, because I've prepared myself for these moments uh, to be able to, act and react as though I'm, this sort of psychotic, obsessed interrogator, right? Because in those moments, that's how I feel. I feel like a psychopath. So it's kind of easy for me to do it.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
dope. That's dope. A question that I have is that you growing up, watching wrestling, who are some of your favorite wrestlers and some of the favorite moves that I'm pretty sure if you have siblings, you like to do, or you know
I
what I'm
do,
saying,
I
mimic.
do have an older brother, and we used to backyard wrestle quite a bit. Um, I would take the moves from him more often than I would give the moves. His finishing move in the backyard wrestling league was a single underhook pile driver. My finishing move was a maybe like a one arm DDT or something like that. I'm trying to remember 25 years ago, so it's not the simplest task in the world. In terms of wrestlers that I enjoyed, I was a big fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm.
I uh, I started watching wrestling in 1998, and he was really at the sort of peak of his popularity. Even though it's barely
Yeah.
dwindled over the past, 27 years, he's still one of the most massively popular wrestlers in the entire world, even though he's wrestled, one match in 20 years or whatever it happens to be. But yeah, no,
Wow.
I was a big Stone Cold guy. I also liked, I never told him this, but I actually was a big fan of Edge when I was growing up. Interestingly enough, I was a big fan of Edge before he was uh, like I was a fan of Edge in the Brood, which was kind of odd because he really wasn't much of anything in that. Like really, even before the tag team stuff, like the WrestleMania 2000 stuff, like I was kind of like Edge was my secondary guy in like 1999 when nobody really cared about Edge, which is kind of interesting. And almost the more I was a very like I tr- it's funny because on the one hand, like I loved Stone Cold Steve Austin because he felt so like against the grain, but obviously he was like the top guy. But like just
Yeah.
naturally, I always felt like I wanted to like a guy that nobody else liked. So Edge at the time was the guy I liked, and then he blew up, and I was like, oh, now I don't really like him as much anymore. But I was also the kind of person who really liked baby faces and disliked heels, right? I wasn't like just contrarian for no reason. So So yeah, so Stone Cold I really liked until he turned into a bad guy, and then I kind of that I'll be honest, that kind of drew me away from wrestling, and
Mm,
I think that they know that. I think they kind of know that in hindsight. I think Vince kind of regrets that decision, like turning Stone Cold heel in 2001 or whatever it happened to be, because he knows that like thousands of fans like me were like, oh, well, now I don't really want to watch wrestling anymore because my guy was Stone Cold, and all of a sudden I didn't have a reason to watch him anymore because I didn't like him anymore. So,
wow.
yeah, it was a different time. Not nowadays people turn
Man,
heel and everybody gets excited. So it was different back then, right? Back then it was like, oh, a guy turned bad. Like, no, we genuinely don't want to watch this anymore. Right now it's like everyone gets all interested, like, ooh, let's see what John Cena does next. 20 years ago, if your guy turned into a bad guy, you were just like, oh, I don't want to see him get his ass kicked. I just don't want
Right.
to watch the program anymore.
And
man, man,
Yeah.
times has changed though.
Yeah, it's really a
Man,
different dichotomy now. It really is.
yeah. You got a question?
yes, Mr. Dijak, do you have a memorable match that stands out? And if so, why would that match be the most memorable and that stands out for you?
A match that I was in or my favorite match.
That you were in, that you were actually in.
So my favorite match that I was ever in, is the, it's called the Iron Survivor Challenge match from, a premium live event that we had in 2023 called, Deadline, which was out of it was in Connecticut somewhere. Like I don't remember exactly what town in Connecticut it was in, but yeah, that that match was some of the most pressure that I've ever felt. Not some of it was definitely the most pressure I've ever felt in a professional wrestling match. Because like I said, the more I prepare for something, the more comfortable I feel in the moment. This match had so many moving parts that it was almost impossible to feel comfortable while we were doing it. I was
Mm,
comfortable in the performance and the character, but so much of it was like looking at, if you're not familiar with the match or the type of match that it was, it's basically a 30-minute timer and it's counting down, and then there's 5 competitors and we each try to score as many pinfalls or submissions as we can, and you get 1 point for each thing. And also, when you get pinned, you have to go to a penalty box for a minute. And that's basically there's more rules than that, but that's the basic rules. And
okay.
ultimately, because of all these moving parts, we were on a very specific and detailed, time schedule in terms of what needed to happen at what exact moments, right? Because
Mm,
we had all these points adding up and all these people moving into boxes and moving out, and we needed certain situations, and I needed this person to have this many points and this person to have this many points by the time that clock hit 0. So by the time, at the point where there was like 1 minute and 10 seconds left, like a series of things needed to happen exactly as they happened. And we pulled it off and we nailed the time, and I was so happy and excited about that match. It really is, my favorite match of all time.
so,
Nah, that's dope. That's dope. So let me ask you this: you've wrestled a lot. You've been around for quite some time now. Do you have a dream match that you'd like to see happen between you and somebody that
Yes,
hasn't happened
well,
already?
yeah, no, you're right in the fact that I've wrestled like a lot of people.
Yeah,
There's very
you
very few people left on the list of guys that I want to wrestle. It's almost more like situations at this point rather than. So on the one hand, I love wrestling people who are new to the business. That's one of my favorite things in the world. So like a lot of my quote unquote dream matches are just like people who are brand new to wrestling and who are like coming up on the scene and have a lot of potential, because I feel like I can do something special with those people. But in terms of the other people who are kind of like active that I haven't had the chance to wrestle, Randy Orton is right at the top of that list. He's a guy that I got to wrestle a little bit in like a multi-man match on Monday Night Raw, but I never had a singles match with him or anything, or like a tag match with him. So it's kind of sucks too because I know for sure it was supposed to be myself and Mace versus Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. That was like on the card for one Monday Night Raw, and then it randomly got switched because it was Vince, and Vince would just switch the card randomly for no reason all the time. So yeah, I was kind of bummed that that didn't happen. But yeah, I'd love to wrestle Randy Orton. I'd love to wrestle Brock Lesnar. Um, uh, those are probably the guys at the top of the list, really. There's there's
That's
other people, but the reality of the situation is I've wrestled like pretty much like. For example,
yeah.
I was looking at the WrestleMania card this weekend, and I'm just going down it, and I've wrestled at least one person every single men's match, if not both people in most men's matches. Like I've wrestled Cody Rhodes 8 times. I've wrestled John Cena before. I've wrestled Drew McIntyre, Gunther. You just go down the list. I've wrestled all these people, usually multiple times. So it's like I'm kind of running out of dream matches in a sense. Even if you flip the script and go to AEW, I've wrestled, Swerve, Hangman, I've just wrestled all these guys multiple times. So it's like, what's left? But, there's a few names left. Surprisingly, I never had a match against like Osprey. He and I were together in Ring of Honor at the same time. And weirdly, that match never happened, even though it'd be a great match. Like me and Omega never happened, for example. That was a match I asked a lot of promoters for a long time. There's a few other names, but it's a dwindling list. It's a lot easier for me to look at the list of new wrestlers and say, oh, I want to wrestle all those guys than it is to look at the people at the top of the business and say, I've wrestled most of them at this point.
Man, Mike.
Yes, sir. Mr. Dijak, you talked about the preparation and becoming, this character before you even, approach the ring.
Yes.
Now I see something, but the question to me is I do not know this.
Okay.
Have you acted outside of the ring before? And if not, is there any inspiration to act outside of the wrestling?
Like acting
Like
like
acting, yeah, like performing arts, acting.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of what we do in pro wrestling has elements of acting. I was especially happy, like, for example, when I was feuding with Joe Gacy in NXT, we did a ton of backstage vignettes, and all of that was acting. But it was within the realm of my pro wrestling character,
Okay.
of course. In terms of outside of my pro wrestling character, yeah, I act all the time. I'm in I've done 3 levels of classes with Howard Fine, who's kind of world recognized as one of, if not the best acting coach in the world. I train classes with him all the time, and we do what's called self tapes for those. So I'm constantly in front of my blue screen, filming myself acting, practicing different roles, different characters, things like that. In terms of like on screen roles, I've got a couple of things coming up for different opportunities with like commercials and TV shows and things like that. So those are my first like truly sort of paid acting gigs. They're not 100% set in stone yet in terms of date, but there are opportunities coming up for me. But yeah, the reason that there hasn't been more is because I was with WWE for 7 years, and they dictate whether you do something or not.
Oh,
I wanted to, but you can't go take side projects without their permission. So that's just kind of the way that it worked there. But now I'm free to do what I want. So yeah, I'm starting to book some more gigs outside of wrestling, and hopefully, that starts to increase over time because I can't pro wrestle forever, but you can't act forever. So that's the good news.
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's dope.
yeah.
That's dope. So, shout out right quick, my homie Flip the White. Shout out to my homie Kiwan from the St. Lunatics. They're tuning in right now. One of the questions that I want you to speak more on though is that I see that you started your own academy. What was that like, and what was the inspiration behind that? If you could just
Mm.
plug that, man,
Sure,
that's dope.
yeah. No, my online wrestling academy is the Dijak Wrestling Academy, and you can visit the website at dijakwrestling.com. My inspiration for that really is, as I already talked about, the online classes I do with Howard Fine. I saw that sort of opportunity and that medium that he's using, and I said, man, there are so many applicable properties of professional wrestling that can be utilized in this same fashion that in the same format that Howard is using. And people don't think of it that way, right? Because they think of pro wrestling training and they think of, oh, I need to learn how to bump, I need to learn how to Irish whip, I need to learn how to body slam, right? And yes, that is part of pro wrestling training. But really, the sort of nitty gritty, difficult part of pro wrestling training that a lot of trainers don't spend a lot of time focusing on, the great ones do, right? All of the great trainers, they address the mental and psychological part of pro wrestling endlessly. But there's a lot of trainers who just say, "Oh, take a bump, hit the ropes, whatever. Okay, now you're ready to be a pro wrestler." That's unfortunately not really the case, right? You can learn bumps and you can learn arm drags and hip tosses and all that stuff from a lot of people. What I'm offering you is the mental and the psychological approach to professional wrestling, while also giving you some tips on the footwork and the physicality and the emotion and the intent and all those things. But I realize that a lot of this can be taught without being in person, right? I can just talk to people about this. I don't need to smash your head off the ground or slam you into the mat or throw you around the ring or get you exhausted and tired. Those are all things that you can for sure do. But what I can provide you and what I can teach you is offer you this service, and I can do it in a sort of classroom setting, by talking to multiple people at once and then having this interactive sort of conversation about it. And there's really a huge part of professional wrestling that falls under that realm. So I saw an opportunity in a market that has very little options in terms of that specific thing. So that's not only is that what I'm trying to capitalize on, it's what I feel like can help people, because this is the kind of thing that I would have loved to have had when I first started training in 2012 and moving into 2013, because I wasn't the kind of person who was big into the backstage parts of professional wrestling. I just watched the show and enjoyed the good guys and disliked the bad guys. So I wasn't paying attention to like what the beginning of a match usually looked like and where the bad guy took control of the match. I wasn't paying attention to any of that stuff. So when we started talking about those concepts in class, it was just completely over my head, and I had no idea what was going on. And it took me a while to sort of figure out the mental components of that and to be able to apply them to what I was doing physically. And if I had someone who could have, explained that to me with such great detail over an online Zoom course at that time, I would have absolutely taken advantage of that. Fortunately for me, I was surrounded by, some of the best minds in the business when I was coming up, in terms of, my trainer, Brian Fury, and then, Todd Hansen, who's Ivar of the Viking Raiders. Tommaso Ciampa, was a guy who helped train me. I was constantly surrounded by, Les Thatcher and Tom Pritchard and the Danny Cage at the Monster Factory, and Pops at the Wild Samoan, and Sam at the other Wild Samoan school. So I was constantly surrounded by people who absolutely knew what they were talking about, and I was very fortunate in that aspect. But there's some people who don't have access to that level of coaching, and there's some people who are just they live in Uh, I, I just talked to a kid in the middle of Saudi Arabia
Mm.
who's interested in taking my class. And it's like, he just tells
Wow.
me, I don't have a school to go to. And I want him to be able to learn this part of pro wrestling so that when he gets the opportunity to go to another school and learn how to take bumps and learn how to hit the ropes and stuff, he'll have a better mental foundation and a psychological foundation of what this means and how we can approach it, because that's just going to continue to build the landscape of professional wrestling. And I think that that's a special opportunity.
That's dope. That's dope. And I salute you on that behalf, because we need more people like that.
Thank you very much.
For real. For sure, for sure. But before you wrap it up, I just got a quick
Sure.
question for those that are tuning in. Do you have any encouraging words for those that's trying to possibly get in the game or the whole wrestling scene?
Absolutely.
Trying to
Absolutely.
accomplish you've accomplished?
Now more than ever, and I know this is kind of funny coming from a guy who's, 6'7", 270 pounds, and I played Division I football. So it's kind of silly coming from me, but the reality of the situation in the landscape right now is that you don't need to be me. There was a time 20 years ago where if you wanted to be a pro wrestler, you either had to look like me or you had to be huge, or there was a lot of sort of gatekeeping in that world. Now the field is wide open, right? Anyone can be a professional wrestler. I've seen people who are wildly unathletic become professional wrestlers. You don't have to be incredibly athletic. It does require a level of athleticism, of course. But that can be learned over time, right? If you have the dedication, you can get into shape and you can accomplish the things that you don't need to be perfect at everything. But my goal is to try to prepare everyone to be proficient at everything and to excel in the areas where they can excel at. And I think that, one of my purposes in this world is to be able to give people sort of those steps and that foundation to be able to do so. So if you have an interest in being a pro wrestler and being a manager and being a referee or just learning about the business, right? You're a fan who wants to know, how the whatever the phrase is, how the bread is made, or what, you want to learn the process of what it takes to make a professional wrestling match and to have great professional wrestling matches, or to be a great professional wrestler, and you're just naturally interested, then I would love for you to head on over to DijakWrestling.com and check it out, and you and we can have a conversation about it. I offer 15-minute free consultations with anyone who's interested. So yeah, hit me up, shoot me an email, use the contact form. It goes right to my email. I'll get back to you. Anyone who's interested, I encourage you to try, because now more than ever, you don't have to be, a certain height or a certain weight. You can just be yourself and be the best version of yourself. And that's enough to succeed in this business.
Man. You got any last questions, Mike?
Yeah, last question. So me, myself, being a spoken word artist and performer, as you was talking about preparing, and putting this character inside of you before you enter the ring, the preparation before it. So my question to you is, I just love that part. I just want to say that. But my question to you is, how do you balance, your wrestling career, with your life, your personal life, and your family? How's the balance between with that?
That's a great question. My approach is that I spend every free second that I possibly can have with my family. I take all of the other sort of accessory things out of my life, right? I don't, my free time is when my kids are like asleep and I happen to be home. That's my free time. That's when I can find time to do something. I'm not going off to spend time with my friends. I'm not going off to go see a movie while the babysitter's here. Almost never, right? Because I'm on the road so frequently now, like more now than I was when I was with WWE, which I know is difficult to believe for some people, but that's just my situation. And I wrestled in Hamburg, Pennsylvania last night, so I left here at 5:45. My kids were still asleep. 5:45 a.m. Drove 6 hours, did a 3-hour seminar, did the show, drove 6 hours back, got here at 3 a.m. and then woke up at 10 a.m. right after my kids were awake, my wife was gracious enough to let me sleep in for an hour or two, just so I wasn't like a zombie today. And then we celebrated Easter today.
Wow.
And today's not Easter. We celebrate Easter today because I'm going to be in England next Sunday when it's Easter. So I know I'm not here
Same.
a lot of the time. My kids don't get to see me
Mm.
next Friday, next Saturday, next Sunday because I'm gone in England. So if I don't spend every waking second that I have with them, like the second I get off this with you, I'm going to go back downstairs and spend the next 4 hours with my kids and my family because I know that every minute I have with them, I need to make it count. So for me, that fulfills me and my obligations to both being a professional wrestler and being a constant and present, father figure and husband to my wife because I, I don't, I have 2 full-time jobs and that's it. It's literally all day, every day. I'm either wrestling or I'm family and that's it, right? It's one of the two. So, and the great part about that is that those are my 2 favorite jobs in the world. So I'm not like mad or angry about it. It's just my reality and I kind of enjoy it. So that's my mindset. And I think everybody comes out the other end, happy. So, maybe not perfectly happy, but but we're all in a good place.
Love it.
Man, once again, definitely an honor to have you on the show. Shout out to my co-host Mike. Man, we definitely gonna work more. I'm gonna hit you up with some more
Sure.
ideas and stuff. We could definitely get it working.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you, Mr. Doctor.
All right.
All right. Take
All right.
care. Bye.
All right. Bye. Bye.